today's topic is all about overwhelm and wisdom. We all experience overwhelm at times, and I've been having an overwhelming couple of weeks. And so, what I thought I would do is use my experience as a way of sharing how it works so that you might be able to reflect and see how that might be going on in your life. Now, you may see I'm in my car, and you may hear that there's cars going past and people walking past and the sound of the sea in the background. I'm not sure if you can hear that or not. But part of my wisdom was to not go and sit in the office today, not to go and try and work from home today, but to get away and just find my grounding. So let me share with you about overwhelm and wisdom. The first thing to understand is that overwhelm most definitely covers our wisdom, and yet the solution to our overwhelm comes from wisdom. And so you think, well, this is a catch-22. What do we do with that? It's a catch-22. How are we going to get out of that if we need our wisdom to get out of overwhelm, and our overwhelm is covering our wisdom? And I've just been witnessing myself over these last couple of weeks, so I've got some insight into how that all works. Because overall, my wisdom has still been there. At times, it was very covered to the point that I was not functioning in a wise manner. But I had an awareness of that, which I think is a very important aspect of this, is having an awareness that you're not in your wisdom. And I also know not to try and fix it. And that also helps, because I knew that I had trust and faith that my wisdom would come back when everything settled. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And I think that also helps you not get into more overthinking, which just adds to the levels of overwhelm. So what was interesting is by yesterday, I kind of reached my maximum point in my thinking, right? So obviously Allah never burdens us with more than we can bear, but sometimes it can look like we can't bear it. And that is coming from, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's coming from our thinking that we can't manage it. So I had layers upon layers upon layers upon layers upon layers of thinking that had all mounted up into overwhelm. And it looked like a whole lot of things, because when my son snapped at me and then I just lost the plot back at him, he then came in and sat with me, all covered in grease because he'd been working on a car. So it was a bit hard to take him seriously with a black nose and black smudges all over his face, subhanAllah. Ameen. Jazakallah khair for your du'as. And asked me what's wrong. And so I started spilling the beans of all the things that I thought were wrong, all the things that I thought were overwhelming me. So one of them was going back 2 days when I'd been busy cleaning in another room, and I'd gone into the lounge room and there's 3 of the kids sitting there pretty much doing not much. And so I asked them to tidy up and wash the dishes, a few things like that. And I didn't go down to that part of the house again until the next morning, only to discover no one lifted a thing, no one did a thing. And so I started ranting and raving to him about nobody helps, it's all on my shoulders, that nobody cares, or I have to do everything. There was another layer, which it looked like, which was there are certain things going on at the moment that are going to cost extra expense. And so there was thinking around, I don't have the money, to cover those expenses. And so straight away, while we're talking, this is my eldest son, he sent money, and it was a lot more than I would have ever expected from him or anything. And so that kind of relieved that thinking for the moment, but I still kept realizing I'm in this overwhelm. And so I kept picking all these things, and all the things I kept picking, he kept trying to fix, because unfortunately he runs this rescuer pattern. So he's trying to fix everything, which is beautiful and lovely in one way. But on the other hand, in this particular moment, not helpful, because actually what I needed was someone to challenge those stories and go, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it, until I got to what it was. But alhamdulillah, I've been on this journey where this morning I had an appointment where we were working on a particular project, and then had a conversation with one of the mentors from Back to the Fitrah. And I was just explaining a few things that were going on. And that brought a little bit more clarity, right? And then I dropped the kids off at school, and I made the decision not to go to the office. And that gave me like permission to just slow down when I made that decision. And it even gave me permission to come late to the We Are All Okay until I was ready, right? And so the reason I was late coming live was I was still just everything landing. And then as I was driving here, I had the insight of what was really going on with the overwhelm. So it's to do with a dynamic in one of my relationships, and I'm not going to go into those details here right now, because it's not about the details of what was going on there. It's actually about how it looks to us, but how it really is. It looked to me like all those things that I was saying were the reason for my overwhelm. And that's what we do. And that's what people do to us too, is when it looks like that, we then go and either try to fix that thing or try to coerce someone else to fix that thing, especially if what we've believed is that they have to behave differently or something, like it's something to do with them. And we hook our well-being and being in our wisdom on that this is what's needed, but then feel deflated because it didn't solve the problem. Actually, there was another layer that I actually recognized. One of them was an unfulfilled expectation. I've had 6 weeks of summer break where it's been absolutely challenging to do work, and this is the first week back at school. And I had this expectation in my mind, this week I will catch up. I made that expectation. And what has happened is my time has been sabotaged even more. So it was another defeated sort of expectation, or unmet expectation was another layer. So I was also getting cross with the people who were involved in the reasons why I wasn't able to meet my expectation of catching up this week. And so I haven't been as nice a person as I normally am, which is what can happen. But the key message here is, most of the time, it isn't what it looks like it is. So what I mean by that is we're looking at the content, or we're looking for what it is that will fix it, that will make us feel better, that will get everything the way we think it needs to be, and then our overwhelm will go away. It's not true. It's not true. We are being deluded, and I was being deluded, and that happens to all of us. This is something that sometimes we see it, sometimes we don't. But what was another really key element of all of this was the nagging feeling that something wasn't right that was there. So this is the bit where I'm sharing with you that the wisdom was still there, even in the overwhelm. So, but I wasn't being able to read it. I wasn't being able to work out what it was, nor should you try to work it out, because you will understand it when the overwhelm goes away. But the key message there is it is still there. It is still saying something's not right. And in fact, it was actually sending me quite big alarm bells that something needed to be addressed now before it grows into something that is beyond being able to be addressed. And the reason I was late going live was I needed to record a message to someone to correct that situation. Not correct, but make aware to somebody of something that I have realized is happening. And so it's really fascinating to notice how we get so messed up and tangled up in our thinking, and we're looking for these solutions and then disappointed when they don't solve the problem and think something must be wrong with us. But the reality is it's not what is the real thing that is leaving us overwhelmed. It means that we haven't actually got to the bottom of the pile of what all the things are that are overwhelming us. But most importantly, we haven't got to the key thing that in fact we're overwhelmed about. And all the other things are actually not important by comparison, to be honest. And I mean, they're important, but not important by comparison to the one that is the one that has us stuck. And so it's a case of, if fixing that didn't solve the problem, then that wasn't the problem. And the other thing is, it's not even about finding out what the problem is and figuring it out. It's about realizing that in fact all of it is coming from thought, and that the wisdom is still there, and that maybe it's the fact that the wisdom is trying to be heard that is really leaving us in this sense of overwhelm, where things normally we would cope with, we're not coping with, which was definitely my experience yesterday. And then alhamdulillah, it's about dua, making dua. And honestly, guess what the dua was I made? It was help, because I didn't know what was wrong. Just Allah help. And then alhamdulillah, through the conversation this morning, and then giving myself permission not to meet expectations today, to just like slow right down, then the insight came. And that's how it works. And now I don't feel an overwhelm anymore. Now I'm taking charge of things. I'm back in my wisdom. And alhamdulillah, that's how it works. But that doesn't mean I won't necessarily have another time where I lose it again. And I don't mean now lose it like as in lose the plot, just lose that wisdom. And that's seriously how it works. And it's very hopeful and very freeing to be able to really see that and appreciate that. Alhamdulillah. So that is my Wisdom Wednesday for today. And once again, it's coming from my experience, and perhaps that's a good thing. I mean, Halima said here, I really needed to hear this. Alhamdulillah. Putting too much expectation on herself and beating herself up. Absolutely. You will go into overwhelm if you feel that way. So share your takeaways. If you are on YouTube, please write it in the comments. If you are in LinkedIn or Facebook, write it in the comments. And if you feel that this was beneficial, please share it with others. If you're on Facebook, it means inviting them to the We Are All Okay group, because they won't be able to see it if you just share it to them and they're not in the group. For everybody else, share it as you will with the YouTube link or through LinkedIn. But please share the khair. If you benefited, maybe someone else will. And make sure you like this and then comment your takeaway. Please share with me what you took from this, whether it was beneficial, whether you had any aha moments yourself. I have here, blessed is the one in whose hands rests all authority, and he is the most capable of everything. He is the one who created death and life in order to test which of you is the best in deeds, and he is almighty, all forgiving. Alhamdulillah. That is a very good thing to remember under these circumstances too, alhamdulillah, because in fact the solution to my overwhelm is all from Allah, because the insights are all from Allah. It's Allah guiding us in every moment and every aspect of our lives, and that makes us in a position to totally trust and rely upon him, knowing that he is there like that. This is the true essence of tawakkul. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. So I haven't got any other takeaways that are here in the chat for now. So I'm going to sign off, but do make sure you still share your takeaways, because I will be interested to read them, inshallah. You can tag me in them so that I make sure I see them. And I will see you again next week, inshallah, with Wisdom Wednesdays. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.